All right, welcome to another great episode of College Talk Tuesday. Pearl and Andy Lockwood right here. Hello. Hello, Pearl.
Hello, Andy. Hello, everybody.
Happy post-Thanksgiving to everyone. Hope you had a nice turkey day. We were up in Massachusetts visiting my family, because I have a family too.
You do?
Had a high school reunion, which was kind of eventful, yet a little depressing. 70% a lot of fun and 30% awkward. So hopefully, some of you had that type of experience also. So today we're going to be talking about college stuff. College Talk Tuesday. It's every week. It's Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern, and we talk about college admissions, college financial aid, various things that are happening in the specific timeline. Whenever we're airing the episode. So please like the page. That'll help share it. And if you have any questions, type them right in the comments section. Pearl is going to go on to the page. She's going to have a problem with the microphone. It's going to start blaring because that happens literally every time she does this. But we're going to be checking the comments periodically. But what we're going to be talking about today are, we've had a couple of clients, including one as recently as this morning, talk to us about admissions officers requesting additional mid-year or mid-semester grades from high school seniors. We're going to discuss the implications of that and what to do about it, if you can actually do anything about it. We're also going to talk a little bit about the truth about SAT and ACT testing. I'm starting to speak to a lot of juniors, class of 2018, who are in the middle of mapping out their schedule for taking these standardized tests. And I also wanted to go through a little bit of financial aid stuff. Okay. We'll get a little insight into Pearl's world. And if we have time, some viewer hate comments.
Oh, more?
Yeah. Well, leftovers from last week.
Good.
Yeah, because last two episodes, we've talked a little bit about Donald Trump and what his behaviors, his actions, can teach college admissions, or I should say college applicants, about the admissions process. And just to be clear, it was not a political show, but of course, because we use the name Trump, many viewers just assumed that it was political. So we'll discuss those too.
Yes.
So welcome to the show. Please like, comment, and share. Let us know that you're here. And I am going to, get right into this here. So you had a question today from one of our clients, and I've had the same question also about, why don't you rephrase the question you got, and I'll chime in here.
Okay.
I'm just going to see who's on while we do this, guys.
Well, we have a client who's applying to a school, and the school has now made a request through the guidance department for current first quarter senior grades. And I guess that's evidence of further consideration, and depending on how you do, it could potentially tip the scale one way or the other.
So I want to address this a little bit, because we've had quite a few clients have this happen. They're being because when you apply to college, you're giving a snapshot of your academic performance that pretty much ends in your junior year. But in many cases, particularly with early decision candidates, the colleges will want to see how you're doing so far in senior year. So this is these comments are partially directed at seniors, and they're also directed at juniors and younger families. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing that. Well, I guess overall, if I had to choose one, it would be a good thing that the college is indeed interested in finding out how you're doing in your first half of your senior year, because that means they're giving you serious consideration. I think it also generally means that they just want to see how you stack up compared to the other applicants that they're considering. So if it's a situation where your grades are not as good as they had been historically, to be candid, I would be a little concerned, unless they're only slightly off. And I don't know in the case of our client this morning if that was the situation, or they're way off.
Well, I think it's definitely at least a grade that is off from the grid, if you will, for this particular student.
So significantly lower?
Well, it's an average score, but
right.
It's for this student.
Well, what is it?
It's a C.
Okay. And is it in a subject that he's proficient
Pursuing?
in, or is it right? Or is
pursuing? No. Typically proficient in, yes.
Okay. So, so the deal is that.
But here's the just to round this out a little. This student has a very heavy course load with a lot of rigor, perhaps even more rigor. Lots of rigor demonstrated throughout the academic profile.
Meaning AP classes
yes,
and those types of things.
And more so, really heavy rigor this first semester, senior year, which may have been a detriment.
Well, that's what I was going to say before you cut me off, Carl.
Sorry.
So, what? So, because I never do that to her. So, what a lot of parents and kids assume is that the junior year is the most important year. It is very important, but you talk to admissions officers, and we know numerous of them. We actually have a few of them who help us with our clients who work for us, and many of them will tell you that they care even more about the senior year, about the course load and the course rigor, because when you apply to college, you do not want to be perceived as someone who's just going for high grades. You want to be perceived as someone who's taking the most challenging classes possible. So we talked before a few weeks ago about how I had a client who I specialize in giving bad news or bad advice to clients that's not really bad. They just don't want to hear it, particularly kids, which is about I'm really struggling with AP, physics. I'm going to go into college as a history major. Do I really need to continue with AP Physics, or can I drop it? And my response is always along the lines of what we're talking about here, which is that colleges care first and foremost about how much you've challenged yourself. So if you really think you're going to do terribly in it, meaning a C or worse, not a B, not an A, then yeah, I would consider dropping it. Otherwise, if you can muster out a B or even better, then go for the more rigorous course load. So fast forward to senior year, what admissions officers really like to see is that the kid continued to challenge him or herself with AP classes and IBs and the equivalents as much as possible. It's not the end of the world if there's one bad grade, particularly if it's in an area that's not going to be related to where the kid majors. Mm-hmm. In contrast, if it's a engineering, kid who's going into engineering and they've got a C in physics or something, or any of the STEM class subjects for that matter, I would be a lot more concerned. Mm-hmm. So overall, it's a good sign, and even if your grades are a little bit lower, it doesn't necessarily doom you. I think that's the message.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to juniors now. So when you are finalizing your schedule for senior year, don't slack off. Don't take the easy classes. Yes, there is such thing as a senior slump. I would postpone that until after the second semester.
Spring.
I mean, after the first of the year. I would postpone it until spring semester, and even then, you don't want to be one of those statistics where you went from being an A student to a C student, because colleges still can rescind their offers if a kid really blows it after they think they're not being scrutinized anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just in terms of, yes, there's a certain amount of rigor, but there are lots of parts to this. There could also be a student who ascends to their academic greatness in high school. For example, maybe they have a rough adjustment to high school, or they're not quite equipped or mature enough to handle the course load, etc., and they're getting their act together, and that takes maybe through 9th grade, half of 10th. But if the trend overall is an improvement as a student, it could potentially explain some of those earlier pitfalls, but perhaps would overall benefit that student.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you're just joining us, please say hi in the comments section. Please share. Please like. Let's see. I see that Laura Fuller Lockwood, cousin
Hi.
Laura, just joined, and John McCabe made an error of judgment and shouted out to us, and Richard Kaplan gave us a 5-star rating.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you would have been better off holding off.
We'll try to keep it good.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little pressure right now.
Me too.
Janita Cherry Romare, I don't think I'm going to pronounce this right, Romare, and Aubrey Scott Roney. All right, cool.
And Adina Teicher. It's really one of my very oldest friend.
You can't show favorites when you're on the air like this.
But it's my oldest
All
friend.
of you other people who are not Adina, how old is she?
She's my age. She's one
She's not your
month
oldest friend.
younger than I am, exactly.
I'm older. She's not your oldest friend.
No, but I've known her the longest.
Thank you. We care about precision here on College Talk Tuesday, unless I'm making a mistake. All right, so let me talk a little bit now about SATs and ACTs. What was that? Okay.
Oh.
So it's very distracting. By the way, speaking of distractions, our dog Arnold is beneath us right now, having a bone and making all sorts of snorting and dog bone enjoying sounds. So I doubt those are coming through on the camera and the microphone. But if they are,
It's not us.
Yeah, if they
That's
are,
what we just-
it's not some weird
We are not making
intestinal
the snorting
issue.
sounds.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, not on camera. We try that.
Right.
Try not to. Okay, so. Been having a bunch of conversations with juniors, class 2018, about their ACT and their SAT schedule and testing and all that, and I just wanted to make a few comments. So I think, and I'm not an SAT tutor, we certainly know many of them, and we've sort of culled together on our short list, good referrals and sort of best advice givers. From that list, I believe that the best time to start prepping for the standardized test is summer before junior year. I really think that even if you're prepping prior to the PSAT or the plan or whatever the equivalent of the ACT is, that helps you in your junior year. Now, in an ideal world, you get all your standardized testing done in your junior year. What happens with a lot of kids is they blow it off, they only take one or two of each, one or two total, and then they cram in their senior year, and they hope that those scores are going to help them. It's like a last-ditch effort, Hail Mary. Now, sometimes they do.
Which also brings me to that other point of the senior wondering how to approach the admissions with scores not yet in. We'll address that.
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about it now.
Well, basically, we have a case in point where we have a senior client who is applying, and she's applied early action to a handful of schools, with the hopes also of having a new and improved ACT score to present to the admissions committees this fall.
Which, by the way, can also go for any type of test. It could be,
absolutely,
of course, SATs.
Of course.
And actually, we just had a good story about an SAT subject test for math from one of our clients. I don't know if you saw that email.
I did not.
The kid who's being recruited at a very, very super hard college to get into, he's being recruited as an athlete, was not going to get in because of some of his other scores. He pulled an 800 on a subject test that he needed to do well on.
That is huge.
Yeah, and it was really cool.
That's great.
Yeah, that's the stuff we
awesome.
love. Yeah. So anyway, so the question you'd gotten was,
right?
should
I'm not even sure how many ACTs she necessarily took in her junior year, but so to that point, just to not have this current situation on hand, she is hoping and waiting for the new ACT score to hopefully bring her over the edge if she's improved the score. Yet the score is not quite coming soon enough and she's concerned about an admissions decision made prior to the release of that score. And she had asked us, well, should we reach out to the admissions committee and just write that another score is coming down the pike? And candidly, we really advised against it because you're not really giving any new information yet. And you ultimately may not be giving any information with respect to that score if it's not a good score.
Well, so there's two things. One, when you fill out the common application, there's a section on there. Do you want to self-report your scores? And below that, there's a question: what are your future test dates? And I assume that she, at that point, had decided to take the ACT because you have to sign up, at least a month in advance, and that lets the college know that you're actually you're planning on taking another standardized test. So the question you had gotten from one of our loyal listeners, so it's a very common question.
Yes.
Also, was she's thinking about writing a note saying, I'm going to take the test and I feel confident that I'm going to do well in it. That doesn't really tell an admissions officer anything. It just sort of, I don't know. I don't know if it's annoying. It's probably not annoying, but it's not new information. New information is, hey, I just took it and I got my score back, and it's an 800, and
right.
that would be
and
very
here's
helpful.
new information, actual new information for you to consider.
Not anticipated
but
new
just
information.
It's a pretext. I get it, but it's not. It's not ripe.
It's not valuable.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, so I think that sometimes there are reasons that we hear for not taking the SAT in fall of junior year or the ACT in fall of junior year. Even if your reason is that you haven't had yet all the math instruction, all the subject, I would still take not only the PSAT but also the SAT and the ACT in fall of junior year, even if you're very busy and all that, because it is just like playing a sport, shooting, if you're a basketball player, shooting foul shots. The more you do, provided that you're shooting them the right way, as opposed to like that. So that implies you should have a coach or or a tutor, or take class. But the more you do, the more prepared you'll be on actual game day. And just assume that first time you take it for real, you're not going to do as well as hopefully the second time. So my advice would be you take it once in the fall, maybe twice in the spring, and then you're done. It being either the SAT or the ACT, you get a feel for which one you're doing better at, and that's the one you focus on. But what we're just talking about is that many seniors feel like they should have worked harder to prepare in their junior year, and now when they retake their tests, for the third or the fourth time or something, there's so much more pressure on, and the more pressure you feel, the less likely you are to perform well. Except the case of the guy who got an 800. So yeah. I feel funny about saying his name, I'm bragging about it. It was great, but I won't do that.
Right.
So the point is that even if you think you're not quite ready, the stars haven't aligned, they never will. So just go ahead and take it, at least for the practice, for the exercise. I know you're busy. We're all busy, particularly highly motivated, high achieving high school juniors. But definitely take it. So now it's almost December as we are going live here. There aren't any more opportunities to sign up for this year, but please take it at least twice in the spring of junior year. Okay, let's talk about financial aid. Oh, actually, I have one question before we segue into it, and this is from Christine Meekley regarding the 529. If the parent is the owner and my child is the beneficiary, this is a 529 college savings plan, by the way. Mm-hmm. Is this better in terms of the percentage of income it goes against? I understand more percentage is taken off the kid's income than the parent's income. Is this correct? I'll answer that one.
Okay.
The answer is that you're a little confused between income and assets. So the 529 is an asset. It's not income at all. So if the 529 is held the way you just outlined, parent is the custodian, I guess, and the child is the beneficiary, that will count. Let's say you had a round number, $100,000 in there. That will penalize you at minimum of $5,600, and it could be as much as $20,000 or $25,000. It's usually more toward the lower end. It depends on the schools, but there's no income involved there. So the percentage that you're being penalized is roughly 5% and change versus 20 or 25%. So $5,600 to $25,000 for having it. But if the child were earning income, which is not in this case, then that would in fact be a higher percentage. It'd be 50%, but that's not the case. Now there's all sorts of other esoterica we can get into,
factors,
but I just want to answer the question that way. So I would assume that the amount that you have in a 529 will penalize you. See, that's really the thing about the 529. It's not whether or not it hurts you; it's how much. At minimum, it hurts you roughly 5% of whatever you have saved. Okay. All right. Good. So talk a little bit about what's happening now in financial aid for seniors.
Okay. Well, right now we are, if you have applied early action or early decision, at this point your financial aid forms should be most likely submitted, meaning the FAFSA to all the schools you're applying to, and the CSS profile, an additional form that many schools also require. It's not an either or. And once you file these two forms, there begins the triggering of other requirements as you have begun the financial aid process by submitting these forms. For example, many schools who require the CSS profile require you to upload your tax returns or your tax information or send it through something called IDOC. IDOC is a transportation vehicle, if you will, that many of the schools
Like a
use
car?
that allow you to upload your W-2, the parent W-2, the tax return, the student's W-2, or a non-tax filer statement if the student doesn't file. Each school will have its own requirements, so that is basically the bare bones. Other schools may also require in IDOC a dependent verification form, if you're a self-employed business owner, a business form supplement. Certain schools will have its own financial aid certification form. For example, I know Cornell has its own IDOC Cornell financial aid certification form that also gets uploaded.
Pearl went to Cornell.
I did. And you have the option to either mail in via IDOC or upload through the IDOC site, and that, of course, is for the CSS profile. The FAFSA, pretty much at the outset, we are able to use the IRS DRT, which is the data retrieval tool that, through the FAFSA, permits you to access the IRS site, pull the tax return from the IRS site directly and unfettered into the FAFSA document itself, which many of the schools want to see that IRS DRT task has been performed, and they can therefore rely on the numbers that have been put forth as your actual submitted tax return numbers.
Can you pick up the DRT in Midtown after after you get off the 7 or the 4? So IRS DRT is Internal Revenue Service Data Retrieval Tool. For those of you who want
for the
a translation for the free application for federal student aid. So if you're in the middle of all this, you probably kind of know what we're talking about. If you have not ever grappled with this, if you have a junior or a sophomore, there are two main financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the CSS profile, and they look at your income, they look at your savings, and one form has 200 and something questions, that's the profile, the other one has 100 and something questions, and ultimately they want to verify everything, so they take a look at your tax returns, so there's one way or another that you have to get them over. I actually had a very interesting question either yesterday or, well, today's Tuesday, so it must have been yesterday, from a potential client, who was asking me that she and her husband are married, but they live in different countries. He's practicing medicine in England, and they file separate returns. So if they end up retaining us, then you'll know all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And she was saying that she spoke to a financial aid officer at one of those college financial aid nights, and the financial aid officer from a local college said, well, you're better off not telling us about the other income and just using the IRS. I know. The IRS data retrieval tool just to pull in your information.
Right.
And by the way, the kid's not applying to this particular college.
Wow.
Yeah. So your reaction is kind of similar to mine. I said, well, the FAFSA does ask.
People do this.
Yes, I said the FAFSA does ask about household income. And even though you're in different countries, you're still married, you're still, sharing expenses and all that. I think that would be fraudulent. I don't typically recommend fraud.
On the other hand, they are living separately and are supporting two different households, essentially.
Right. Well, if you look at the directions of the FAFSA, I think what they want to see all income. If you're a married, couple, right. Even if you file separately, right?
But I think it really does go to a state of mind. I mean, as of the present moment, because I have divorced clients or recently separated clients who get very bogged down and concerned with, well, we don't have a legal document yet. We're separated. We even live apart, but, we don't have anything real yet, a piece of paper.
Did you get a manicure?
I did. And, do you need that? Well,
she bites
believe it or not, at this juncture, merely separated couples that is treated the same way as an entirely undocumented divorce couple for financial aid purposes.
Okay, so in this fact pattern,
yes, that's not the
married,
case.
Right?
I know. I'm aware.
Yeah.
And the reality is, this is a federal form, and you are putting your name to it, and you have to sleep with yourself at night, I guess.
Well, the penalties are pretty severe for lying on a form, and they're asking about your family income, your household income. So, okay. A couple shout-outs. Laura, very active today. I want to congratulate you on that. Roll Tide, University of Alabama. And Laura also suggested a strategy of paying your SAT tutor hundreds of dollars on tutoring and then have the scores drop.
Right. Just that's, it also, there's a danger in overstudying or over-preparing, potentially.
Right, and not to cast aspersions on anyone,
Right.
but sometimes it's not the tutor's issue. Sometimes it's the kids not necessarily being coachable or not doing any work in between tutoring sessions. We see that a lot. I'm not insinuating anything by that at all. Never, especially if Laura's actually watching. No, I'm kidding. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit more about the financial aid timeline, just because we're now entering December. When do you anticipate the actual financial aid offers from financial aid offices coming in? And I mean when to the day and hour and minute are all coming in.
Right. And if I could answer that,
What?
we should all play the lottery on what I say. Unfortunately, there is no uniformity in how and when financial aid awards are given as between the schools.
But what if I want it to be uniform?
You're going to be sorely disappointed, and I'm going to encourage you to reset your expectations in conjunction with reality. And that is a big message for this year. It really is.
Yeah,
this is a very important overriding theme. Correct.
Yeah. Out of all the stuff we said on this broadcast, that might have been the most profound thing. But we'll just gloss over that for now, and maybe at some point we'll do a whole episode on that. We'll bring in a shrink or something.
Okay. So the idea behind the change in the FAFSA this year, and then ultimately the CSS profile followed suit in using a prior income year as your base year, the year that is going to be the award is going to basically be based on, is a prior. So for this year, 2017 graduates, it's the 2015 tax return information that is used on these forms. That is an advantage over prior years where it was only the prior year.
Yeah. So when are the offers coming out?
In the past,
when
financial aid offers were not finalized or given until the late spring, and schools decided, or it was decided, that families were not given ample time with their financial aid award, their acceptances, and the time that they had to make the decision was 2 weeks later. It's a lot of information to digest and make such a big decision about such a big investment and commitment that's going to be the next 4 years.
And frequently, we almost always, we try to negotiate those offers too.
That's right.
So when you have a compressed time frame, if you get a financial aid offer, in the beginning of April, and you have to make a housing deposit May 1st, it gets a little stressful and dicey. So hopefully now it's not going to happen, because Pearl guarantees that everyone will get their individual financial aid offers by what
by
date?
New Year's. No, just kidding. So, since the policy was in fact enacted, so the policy behind the change in the base year was so that families could in fact have these financial aid awards longer, and there is no waiting on new tax return information anymore. Those who have applied early action or early decision generally should find out mid-December about their financial aid awards. Sometimes it will accompany the admission letter, and sometimes it won't. It all depends on the school and how they do things. Sometimes you'll get a letter.
The admissions letter should tell you, bear in mind that give us, in a couple of days you're going to get an actual financial aid offer.
Right, exactly. For those who have applied regular decision, in the past we have seen these awards come in mid-March towards April. And that unfortunately has run into where we don't have much time to consider all the awards. But we're hoping that we see these award letters come out closer in time to when decisions are made, which...
Outgoing Secretary of Education Ted Mitchell, Undersecretary of Education Ted Mitchell, was very specific about his desire that colleges accelerate the financial aid award letter process.
Right.
I'm not sure what incoming Secretary of Education Betty DeVos.
Yes.
Is it Betty?
Think.
Yeah. DeVos, she married into the family that started Amway and owns Orlando Magic and all that. Rich DeVos, I guess, is her father-in-law. She married well, but I'm not. Yeah, so far, who knows if she's got any? If she even knows what financial aid is because she's so wealthy. I think she probably does. But so we'll assume that that's going to continue because that was actually, I think, a very good thing that the outgoing administration was an advocate of more transparency and quicker disclosures to families. Quick shout outs: Larry Cohen, Paige Stanfield Myers, and Maggie Coakley. Oh, hi Maggie. All right, cool. So let's get into the hate mail.
Oh.
Something
to brighten our day.
Yeah, well, I think out of all the things that we do all day, in each week as college consultants, this might be my favorite thing. Is just talking to people who just don't get us, and the reason I like it so much is because I'm just amused by people in general. Myself. I mean, don't get me wrong. But I find Pearl very amusing. I find our kids very amusing. I find our clients to be, fun and interesting and occasionally amusing. And I find the people who, just are not in sync with us to be very, very amusing also. So we do a lot of public speaking. We do a lot of this stuff, a lot of shameless self-promotion, webinars and things like that. And what we've learned over the years is that we're not right for everybody. So case in point, last 2 weeks ago, we right after Trump won the presidential election, we did an episode on what Donald Trump can teach college applicants. And the gist of it was that it was not political at all. It was that he can teach us all how to, especially if we're applying to college, how to stand out. Like him or hate him, what was that?
Well, like a mirror, just standing out. No, I'll stop the pantomime.
Yeah, okay.
Just trying to make it more graphic and interesting.
Okay, that's insulting. So, and that was not amusing. Okay, everything else is amusing. So, again, that was the gist of it. Like him or hate him, you think he's terrible, you think he's great. One thing he's really good at is getting attention.
You know who he is.
And you know what he stands for, right? So that was the gist of it. So even I was a little surprised by some of the comments, like, Trump was a bully. Are you recommending that the kids applying to college bully admissions officers? And I was like,
exactly. That's exactly what we're recommending. Yes, you got it. You got it.
Okay, so
nothing lost in translation there.
Okay, so a couple of comments like, "This is a turnoff." And I was like, okay,
Didn't know we were here to turn you on.
Well, no, I mean, good, turn it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay also. And one of the comments was that she was going back and forth with someone else on our Facebook page. Was that she said that she said that I missed the point that Trump's name should not be brought because this is about college admissions, and. Not brought. She meant brought up, I think.
Do we have a new producer?
So, she felt the right, to comment, which is totally fine.
Entitled?
I just think it's kind of funny that she's so certain that her opinion is correct about everything, and I think a lot of people feel that way, conservative or liberal. But the whole point again is not to do anything other than to give a current example of something that is undeniably working in one area. So I'll give you another example of two things that have nothing to do with each other that were kind of melded together and produced something very very long lasting and very valuable. And I'm talking about bank teller windows. So the bank teller window was brought about by a bank executive who was getting fast food, and he got he drove up to a window and he's like, I wonder if we could do that for our bank. So he took something that was totally unrelated and put it over to his industry, what he was an expert on. That's sort of what we were trying to do. I'm trying to be the fast food guy of college admissions, in that I was just trying to, looking around for something interesting that we could use as an example and something that's totally unrelated. So,
but topical.
Yes, topical and attention getting. We try to get attention for ourselves also, just the same way we coach our clients to get attention for themselves to college, because frankly, when you apply to college, it's very easy to get lost in a sea of sameness. And what I mean by that is, last night, for example, there were at our high school, there were the inductions to the National Honor Society, and something like 85% of kids, we've heard, because we don't know firsthand, We've seen, yes,
Facebook.
Secondhand, get admitted to that, and that's great. I'm happy for them and all that, but that's not exactly something that makes you stand out when more kids are in it than are not in it. And that's really what it's all about. So when you see us doing this and putting ourselves out there and trying to answer questions and trying to look at things a little bit differently and all that, in a way to sort of get attention and entertain and all that, the whole point is that not that we think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, although we do have, speaking for you, I think a very high opinion of ourselves and our abilities as college consultants, but it's really more about saying this is why we are different, and this is how we're putting ourselves out there. And if you're interested in potentially engaging with us to help your child do the same type of thing, stand out in a sea of sameness where there's 5,000 other kids who might have the same grades and the same scores, then you at least know that we're capable of doing that on some level. You be the judge. So that's what all this is.
Albeit provocative.
In that case, it was, but that's what, again, that's all it was about. It was just again, just sort of illustrating that you need to think differently if you want to show up differently to the admissions office. That's the gist of it in summary. So I think let's see. Are there any other quick comments and shout outs we need to do here? Ernie Gonzalez, Ernesto Gonzalez from Newton, Massachusetts, my old stomping grounds, joined us despite my off-color, highly racially motivated attack on him on Facebook yesterday, which is made with parody. Thank you. There's our dog. I guess that means we should hang up. We should end here. So we're going to be off next week because we're going to be away.
Yes.
We're going to be out in the sunny state of California, so we don't have a show planned this year. We're only going to do one more before we wind down the year. And we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for liking and commenting and sharing. Any comments that we could not get to today on this episode, we will respond to them in kind over the next day or so. If something else came to mind, even if it's negative, please feel free to drop it in there. Not asking for
or
that.
Positive.
Yeah, or you're not sure,
College-related, admissions, financial aid, what have you.
Yeah, who cares? Everything's fair. All is fair in college. So thanks a lot for watching. We are signing off now, and please like the page, and you'll be notified of when we go on the air again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.